A dramatic deterioration in the Pope's health tonight. Doctors have operated in a battle to help him breathe. The Vatican says the tracheotomy was a success, but it's the clearest sign yet that the ailing pontiff is seriously ill. We'll have the very latest live from the Italian capital. Also tonight, tough talk. George Bush warns Russia's President Putin to respect democracy in his country. Life protection. Maxine Carr is granted full anonymity. And sky-high Ryanair's £2 billion expansion plan. But is it too much? Too soon?
In the East Midlands, the driver fined for brushing his hair at the wheel of his car wins his fight for justice. More in 20 minutes.
Good evening. It's another sign of the Pope's faltering health. He was rushed into a hospital operating theatre this evening for a tracheotomy, an incision in his windpipe to help him breathe. It followed his sudden admission to hospital this morning. His doctors say flu was once more the cause, and the operation was successful. But there's already speculation that without that operation, he wouldn't have survived. Emma Murphy is outside the Gemelli Hospital in Rome tonight. Emma.
It's been a day of high drama here, beginning this morning when Pope John Paul II was rushed in an ambulance from the Vatican to the Gemelli Hospital. Tonight, we're told that he suffered a serious recurrence of those breathing problems and he had to be taken to surgery for a tracheotomy to be performed. It is a procedure that medical experts say would not have taken place on a man of his age if it hadn't meant and hadn't been absolutely crucial to his survival. Struggling for every breath, this was Pope John Paul yesterday delivering an address to Croatian pilgrims, his longest public appearance in weeks. Today he was due to meet with this party of bishops and cardinals to discuss sacred decrees, but just minutes before he was once again struck down by breathing problems and rushed to the Gemelli Hospital.
He wanted at all costs to participate in the ceremony, which was just a few meters from his apartment. Then his doctors decided to watch it from their own apartment, which he then tried to do. And then while the ceremony was going on itself, or just before it started, he had to be rushed out.
It's only a couple of weeks since the Pope's last show at the Gemelli, where weakened and clearly struggling to speak, he delivered the Angelus blessing. When admitted last time, he was said to be close to death. Today, the Vatican has sought to float down the latest scare, but coming so soon after the last, there are genuine and growing concerns about the 84-year-old's condition. Once again tonight, prayers are being said for the leader of the Catholic Church, with many also aware that medicine can only do so much in the face of age and frailty.
So Emma, what are the doctors saying tonight about tonight's operation?
Well, the word from the Vatican and the medical people here at the Gemelli is that Pope John Paul is conscious. Those who've been in to see him say that he is serene. However, we cannot underestimate the significance of this operation and the fact that once again he was brought here to the Gemelli. When he was taken back to the Vatican last time, the medical facilities there were stepped up significantly to try and avoid a repeat of these scenes with everybody camped outside the hospital. And now it seems that even though they'd improved those medical facilities so much, they were not enough to safely assure people in the Vatican that the Pope could survive this latest setback.
We understand that he's not in intensive care, he's in his own room, but the events of today show just how serious this was, don't they?
Absolutely. It is a very serious situation for the Pope, and everybody is waiting until tomorrow for the briefing to discover exactly what his condition is after this surgery.
Emma, thank you. Blunt talk in Bratislava today. President Bush and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, were skating on pretty thin diplomatic ice amid the Slovakian snow. Mr. Bush said he was worried about Russian democracy being stifled and about them supplying Iran with nuclear material. In a moment, an exclusive interview with one of the Middle East power brokers on Iran's nuclear potential. First, though, to our Europe correspondent Juliet Bremner in Bratislava this evening.
On a bridge-building tour of Europe, the repeated criticisms levelled at an ally have been quite extraordinary. Amongst the things that were said by America, that they expected Russia to adhere more closely to a Western-style democracy, demands that you might expect would have upset the Russian leader. Outside, there was a decided chill, an ominous omen for the face-to-face encounter between Presidents Bush and Putin, billed as the most awkward of this European tour. But in the end, they insisted the meeting was blunt, not hostile.
That's an important part of having a trustworthy relationship. A relationship where when a person tells you something, you know he means what he says. And yes means yes and no means no.
For his part, Mr. Putin claimed Russia was committed to democracy. Russia chose democracy 14 years ago, he said. This was a final choice. There will be no turning back. It was always going to be a public show of goodwill, but that can't conceal the disagreement. America says it's increasingly concerned that Moscow is going back on its commitment to democracy. Several aspects of Putin's Russia have set alarm bells ringing. Worries about press freedom. Coverage of the Bethlehem school schools was criticised for not being truthful enough. Concern that there's no strong opposition. There have been a spate of demonstrations against Mr. Putin's autocratic rule, and fears that President Putin is ignoring the rule of law, especially in his fight against Russian oil billionaires who oppose him. But it's President Putin's intention to go ahead and sign a contract with Iran to supply nuclear fuel that has most potential to cause friction. Russia's given an undertaking that the spent fuel from the Bushehr reactor will be returned to Siberia. The US fears it may be secretly upgraded to make nuclear material. As he left tonight, President Bush could only say that both countries agreed that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear bomb. That will be of little comfort to Europeans who throughout this trip have asked President Bush to rule out military action against Iran. Although he's ridiculed the idea, he goes on to say that all options remain on the table until Iran renounces its nuclear ambitions.
Brilliant question. Well, Russia's support for Iran's nuclear program is causing alarm in the West, and Middle Eastern leaders are worried too, but by the possibility that America may attack Iran's nuclear sites. Among them, King Abdullah of Jordan. As the King told me today in an exclusive interview, the Middle East already is facing enough difficulties.
Moderate, pro-Western, half-British. The man who succeeded King Hussein of Jordan 6 years ago has been a boisterous calm through turbulent years in the Middle East. But as we spoke in London this morning, King Abdullah was adamant the region does not need yet another crisis, that the issue of Iran's nuclear ambition must not lead to another Iran.
The Americans are saying at the highest level that at the moment an attack on Iran is not on their agenda, but they specifically refuse to rule it out.
If we're going to wrap it up a couple of notches, we've had a tough period in the Middle East, and we don't need any more difficulties, I think. We have enough on our plate to try and solve at the moment. I know that today in people's minds Iran is an issue, and if we're going to tackle Iran, then we need to tackle other countries also. There is so much tension in our side of the world. Anybody who has an international perspective. Well, Israel has a nuclear program. Iran is embarking on one. Pakistan, India have nuclear weapons.
Who's got the right approach over Iran? Is it the European carrot or the American stick?
From my experience in our side of the world, whenever there are two sides, a European side and an American side, it allows the interested party to play one up against the other. Whatever the issue is, I think that Europe and America have to become closer together so that there's no tension around it.
But President Bush's principal message in Europe this week is that the Arab world must move to democracy. King Abdullah is a reliable friend of Washington, but can hardly be said to govern a democracy. And yet, he insists he doesn't feel threatened.
I'm hoping that the process of democracy, as we see successful cases throughout the Middle East, will allow the rest of us as society to move forward. So I think it helps us push the envelope.
Do you support President Bush's drive on this?
Yes. Throughout the Middle East now, reform is being discussed throughout our society. And I think that we are in a position now to be able to move our societies forward. I mean, the Middle East needs to move in that direction, definitely.
This morning, the King met Tony Blair in Downing Street ahead of the International Conference on Middle East Peace to be held here in London next week. Whatever the other problems, Iraq, Iran, Syria, King Abdullah is adamant that the key to peace in the region is peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
If we could have an end to the conflict between Israelis and the Palestinians, which would directly lead to the end of the conflict between Israelis and Arabs, it will give us a chance to move forward with our lives. This instability, the Israeli-Palestinian issue, has been hanging over our shoulders for 5-6 decades, and how many more generations have to suffer? An Israeli-Palestinian peace gives all of us a chance for the future and a future for our children.
King Abdullah of Jordan talking to me earlier today. Here, the clamour grew today for the
government has published a legal justification for going to war against Iran. Politicians and lawyers have demanded to see it after saying that it wasn't the work of the Attorney General, even though it was presented in his name. That's the claim that Lord Goldsmith denied. Our political correspondent, Angus Little, reports.
Before British firms could fall on Baghdad, the government needed the legal go-ahead for war. Leaked documents now reveal that Lord Goldsmith, the Attorney General, seen leaving Downing Street today, not only changed his mind on the legality of the conflict, but suggests that in fact his legal advice was set out to him by close aides of Tony Blair. Speaking on the ITV News channel today, former Prime Minister John Major said the current occupant of Downing Street should now publish the legal advice which allowed military action.
It must surely have been the case that the Prime Minister had legal advice. I cannot conceive that he would have actually taken us to war without being absolutely certain of the legalities of it. And so, if that is the case, and he is absolutely certain, why not publish the evidence so everybody else can see it and kill rumours?
From leaked private evidence given to Lord Butler's inquiry into Downing Street's use of intelligence in the run-up to the war, we now know that on March the 13th, 2003, in Downing Street, Lord Goldsmith met Baroness Morgan, Tony Blair's political advisor, and Lord Faulkner, at the time a Home Office Minister. Up until then, Lord Goldsmith had warned that war may not be legal. Now he was there to discuss his clearer view. According to the leaked document, at the end of the meeting, Lord Goldsmith says that they, logically meaning two of Tony Blair's closest aides, wrote up his revised view. It was then presented to Parliament and to the Cabinet as the Attorney General's formal legal opinion. Lord Goldsmith says the claims are nonsense. At his monthly press conference tomorrow, Tony Blair is expected to be asked if he decided the legal case for war. Angus Walker, ITV News, Westminster.
The crime she was associated with occupies a dark place in the public psyche. Today its gravity was acknowledged. In an unprecedented legal order, Maxine Carr won the right to keep her new identity secret for the rest of her life. As our social affairs correspondent Helen Wright explains, the judge said it was necessary to protect her life and limb.